Hello and welcome to part 3 of the Dumb Shits Guide to Applied Energistics 2. In this episode we'll be covering autocrafting, as per request from one of the comments on I believe it was my first AE2 video, discussing sort of the in-depths of how to make autocrafting work. So what do we need? Well, first things first, what terminals are you going to need? I'd recommend having, well, you need a pattern encoding terminal and a pattern access terminal. I would also recommend an ME request terminal as well. This is very important. We'll get to that later. Let me just chuck that down real quick. And then we'll get to that here in a second. Just one moment. We'll chuck that there. Too easy. Perfect. All right. So what's the first thing you need for autocrafting? Well, the first thing you're going to need is basically a crafting CPU or a crafting computer. So what you're going to need is a crafting co-processing unit, if I can learn how to type. And crafting storage. I also like to use crafting monitors as well, because it shows what thing is being crafted at any given time. And so basically, but you only need a crafting co-processing unit and a crafting storage, and it just has to be a normal shaped rectangle basically. So you can have, for example, just a 1x2, or a 2x2, or a 2x2x2. So as long as it's not in a regular shape like this one, as long as it's a solid block, then it'll work. These ones are the mega ones from Mega Cells. They also work. They have more storage. So basically what the storage allows is more complex crafting recipes. So if you have a crafting recipe with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of items, with hundreds and hundreds of tiers on hundreds of machines, you're going to need a lot of crafting storage. Whereas if you just want to craft sticks or wood into sticks, then you're only going to need a 1K crafting storage. So that's how the crafting storage works. You have one crafting recipe or one process per crafting storage sort of computer. So this can only handle one recipe. And by one recipe, I mean everything needed to make one item. So if you have one extremely complex item, everything's going to be done on that one crafting computer. If you want to craft a second complex item, then you're going to have a second crafting computer, and they would be running in tandem. You're also going to want storage, obviously. I would recommend, if you have fluid storage, to get fluid storage as well as item storage. You can also get, I believe they're called the super storage. Yes, they can hold fluid, mana, chemical, source, all sorts of stuff. They're very useful. But I recommend having fluid, especially for a pack like All the Mods 9, like the one we're playing, where there is a bit of fluid crafting, or if you're playing something along the lines of like a Greg Tech pack, fluid crafting would be very helpful, and having fluid storage cells is very helpful. Alternatively, you could use a storage bus on a chemical tank or something like that. That's also an option, but for the sake of this tutorial, we won't go into that. But yeah, having somewhere to store your fluids is very important with some mods. Now, how do molecular assemblers work and pattern providers? So basically, what a pattern provider does is it takes a pattern that you place in here, which can be encoded in your pattern encoding terminal. To do this, you simply click on the item, encode the pattern, or you can drag and drop the items yourselves. So you can pull them out of your inventory or out of your system and place them directly into this grid, and it'll show the output. There are a few important settings here. Clear will clear everything that's already there. Substitutions, basically it means that if there's other items that would also, for example, if your pack has 3 different types of diamond gear from 3 different types of mod, and they all would work for the recipe, it'll use any substitution that it can. This is very useful for wood-based stuff. Oh, I need to craft a chest, but I only have 5 oak planks and 3 spruce. Then with substitutions enabled, it would use the 5 oak and the 3 spruce. Fluid substitutions is, instead of a bucket of an item, it will use the actual fluid itself. Now, what are the molecular assemblers? Basically, you place the pattern. Once you've encoded it in here, you can either place it through the pattern access terminal if you know which one is which. So for example, all these extended molecular assemblers are right here. And then if we look in here again, there's the pattern provider over here with the energized steel. That's this one over here. I don't think you can rename them. You might be able to. No, I don't think there's a way to rename them, unfortunately. But you can also choose to highlight them so you know which one it is. And you can also, inside the pattern provider, choose to hide it from the system, I believe. Show or hide. So now, if we hide it, we can't see it anymore. We'll keep it online. Okay. So the molecular assemblers, you have your patterns as your pattern provider. These are just automatic crafting tables. So the pattern provider will provide the recipes to these pattern providers, or these molecular assemblers, and they will assemble that item, however many you want. These can also be sped up with acceleration cards, so they're a bit faster. This allows for up to 5 recipes to be being made on the same provider in tandem. So for example, if you have, not even 5, 6. So it would send 1 recipe here, 1 recipe here, 1 recipe here, 1 recipe, if all the recipes needed for a given item are in the same pattern provider, because it only is based off of what's inside the pattern provider. Here's a pretty good setup that I have. Basically, it's staggered, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the max amount you can have on one smart cable, and we have them on many sides as possible. We'll chuck some here as well, with molecular assemblers. So it would basically just provide the recipe to these, and they would craft it and automatically return it back into your system. So we already have the recipe for a stick. Let's show this in action. So we will craft, let's say, 3,000 sticks. And we look over here, as you can see, it's making them. If we slap some acceleration cards, it'll go a bit faster. See, now it's like it's going so fast that you can't even see it in here. And if we have a look over here, it shows the progress of everything being made. And that's why I chose these crafting monitors, so you can see what's being crafted on a given monitor. Now, that's basic stuff. That should be your basic early game item crafting. Let's talk about furnaces now. So the furnaces are interesting. So the pattern provider places the block directly into a given inventory. So for example, actually, before we get into that, sorry, one thing we need to know is that there's a difference between crafting recipes and processing patterns. Processing patterns just place items and don't like craft them. They rely on the machine to craft them. So for example, if it's a furnace recipe, like let's go iron ingot. It'd be a processing pattern because you need iron, for example. Well, let's get one, or limonite, let's say. Limonite plus iron, and you encode the pattern and it'll create the outcome. However, you can customize these. So for example, if I'm running my system on coal and I'm not running on energy, I can place a coal in here and it'll place a limonite and a coal into the furnace. So that's what processing patterns do, is basically you put in whatever items you want and you choose the outcome. And ideally, in most cases, it's better to just use the ones that have already preset. Like this one, for example, it's better to use just the preset items because you know that's what it. Oh, that's a pattern recipe. Let's go this. So this is a processing pattern. It's better in a lot of cases to leave it as it is. However, there are some cases where you might need to configure it. For example, this one, you usually leave the program circuits in the machines, to my knowledge of GregTech, so you could remove that. But you have dark oak logs and, steam. Maybe this recipe doesn't actually need steam. In this case, it does, but say it didn't, you could remove that. Or if you already have steam automatically going in there, you don't want to have the system get confused trying to pull steam from somewhere that doesn't exist. There's already steam in there, you can remove it. You can also do this. I don't really know what this does, but there's also a button that comes up here, sometimes with some recipes, that allow you to change between different versions of an item. For example, what's a good example? Certain items have multiple crafting recipes associated with the same pattern, and you can choose by using this little like arrow key thing that pops up here. So now we've got all that said and done. We've got this iron furnace. This is a energy-based one. It's got a factory augment. So there's 2 ways we could do this. So we want to have auto input and auto output on top. We want to set the top to input because that's where the pattern provider is. Now, the 2 options we have is we use a pipe to take the item out and put it back into the provider, or we can set it to, and this works in some machines but not others, input output. So basically what this will do is when it receives an item, it'll craft that item and it'll send the output directly back into the interface itself, so you don't need to have this logistical transporter or whatever pipe mod you're using. Now let's get to stuff that confuses a bit more people. This one got me for a while, the energizing orb from Powah, because what would happen is I'd place a thing down and I'd encode my recipe and I'd craft the recipe and it would chuck too much in. It put like 4 iron, 4 gold, because I think the max stack size in here is like 6. I think it can have 6 of a given item, but for example, the energized steel only requires 1 iron, 1 gold. Let me chuck that in JEI, energized steel. Yeah, 1 iron, 1 gold. So if you had 2 iron, 2 gold, or 3 iron, 3 gold, then it's not going to work. So what do? In the pattern provider up here, there's a setting, lock crafting. So you can have it set to never. This is usually what you're going to use for most cases, until redstone pulse is received, without or with redstone signal, and then without redstone signal, and then until primary crafting result is returned. This is the important one, because what will happen is it will place 1 iron and 1 gold, and it won't place anything more until the primary crafting thing is returned. So only once the energized steel is back into our system, then it will start the next craft. So if we go over here and we craft up energized, I've already got 10 from earlier. Let's go 100. Do I have enough? Yes. So automatically place them in, but it's not placing more than what is needed for one recipe. But as soon as that goes back in, it unlocks. So it's very like convenient, this tool, because this gets me a lot. This got me a lot when I was trying to automate Powah at the start of my first playthrough of All the Mods 9. Let's talk about Mekanism now. So Mekanism is a little bit interesting. Let me actually just dump this so I can give you a better example. One moment. Dropper. Now this setup may seem a bit extreme, but there's actually an alternative that you can use. So basically, with Applied Mechanistics, which is a mod, if your pack has that, Applied Mechanistics, they have chemical storage cells, which basically means that the infusion types for the metallurgic infuser can be stored in your system. I'm going to work under the assumption that you don't have that, and I'm just going to work on the assumption that like you're just playing base AE2 and base Mekanism. Then in that case, and this is a case, so I'm only showing a few examples of a few mods here. In almost every mod you play, or every mod pack you play, if you can't figure it out, the buffer chest does amazing work, because it makes life so much easier, where the pattern provider dumps the processing pattern directly into the chest, and then you can configure X thing to go to Y place. So that's what I'm using here. So we have inside the metallurgic infuser, we have the top set to extra, and then infuse type top input, and we have the front set to input, and then right should actually be output. So what it's going to do is going to take the infusion type from the top, which is the yellow, which will fill up this yellow slot. It'll take the main item, which is the, like for example, an iron. We'll put it in the red slot. That's why it's set to red. And then blue will be the output. So output back into the pattern provider. So if we go, for example, infused alloy, infused, get rid of the ones we already have in there and craft up 100 of them, then it'll automatically place the items into the correct slots, because it's just placing the item into the chest. Because you can see there's iron buffered in here already. So as soon as that one is finished, a new one comes out and it's straight in until the whole thing's done. So the buffer chest for a lot of mods, if you're getting really confused, will save you so much time, because you can set this to a lot of different things. For example, if you want to automate infusion crafting, for example, if you want to automate something that requires like each side to have its own input of a different item, and the pattern provider you can't have them all input from the same side. You can have, for example, the pattern provider on top of a buffer chest, and then you can have like whatever mod you're using to sort the items into the appropriate sides, and then have a main output side that takes it back into the pattern provider. So the buffer chest is amazingly helpful. Now let's talk about industrial foregoing, because this is actually a lot more simple than you'd realize. So for example, and the reason I choose this is because it's a fluid recipe. So we want to make the advanced machine frame. This requires plastic, simple machine frame, blah, blah, blah. Working under the assumption that we have all these items already. The big thing that might get people is pink slime. It's actually fairly simple. As long as you have pink slime in your system, which I do, in this fluid storage cell, then it'll just work. So if we go into here, advanced machine frame, I crafted one earlier just to test it. And we go back over here, it's automatically placed the fluid inside already for us, place all the items. The order the items go in doesn't actually matter, and it will automatically create the item. Now it's like, oh, I want it coming in from a different side. You can actually configure, and most mods will let you do this, configure which sides X can go in. So for example, if you wanted to have the fluid go in the right side or the left side and something else go on the other side, then you can configure it through these sided slots. Now if you want to automate AE2, there's the extended inscriber or just the normal inscriber. It's really up to you. Basically, the inscriber is fairly simple. you just chuck a pattern provider on top and it just works. You want to set it to auto export, and then if you prefer to, stack to 64. I'm using the extended example so it can run multiple jobs at once. So if we go over here, what are they called? Control circuit. Yeah, these ones. Calculation circuits. That's there. So see, that's an example of a mistake I've made, and the reason why editing these processing patterns is so important. Because these inscriber calculation presses are in the machine already. You don't need to put them in or take them out. So we just remove that. And now, since it's already in there, we just send a Certus quartz into the machine and it'll work. So if we go back over here and we go 100, and it'll automatically place the items in here and automatically pull them out once it's done. So as you can see, it was so fast we didn't even see it come out. But if we look in here, we've already made 2. Now, one other thing that I'm going to quickly build off camera, because I just realized I forgot to make it, is mystical agriculture and fusion crafting. So give me 2 seconds while I sort that out. All right, so if you take a look here, you can see we actually have redstone seeds automatically being crafted. So I've got 10 currently crafting. So how does this work? So basically we're using 2 modular routers with stack and speed upgrades. The first one is pulling out everything, so it's got a blacklist for prosperity seeds, blacklisting those, and then so it'll pull out everything but prosperity seeds, and it'll send everything but prosperity seeds. And each of these are linked to each of these towers. So it's set with a puller module to pull from this chest, which is the buffer chest, and then it's sending to each of these. This one right here has a puller module that whitelists prosperity seeds and a sender module that whitelists prosperity seeds. So it pulls prosperity seeds from the chest and into the infusion altar. And then it, once like the recipe's done, we don't want it like pulling out before it's ready. So we have a prosperity seed base blacklist on this puller and sender module. So this one pulls from here and sends to the pattern provider. So basically, we have it in such a way that nothing can be placed in a place it shouldn't be, because these are all blacklisted from prosperity seeds. They're only whitelisted for everything but prosperity seeds. So, and the infusions can be in whichever altar you want, as long as you have 4 of each. And then we have the thing set to lock until primary crafting result is returned, so that we don't have like 6 inferium and 2 redstone, for example. It'll place 4 of each into a chest and a prosperity seed, and then we'll send them out to each of them. And then we've got it set so that it won't, we've got the puller set to blacklist prosperity seeds, so it won't pull prosperity seeds out of this, it will only pull out the final product and insert it back into our system. So there you go. One last thing I want to discuss before wrapping up this video is the ME requester. Basically, what this is so there's a block that does it, there's also a terminal. You can have as many of these as you want, like 4 for example, and you'll have enough slots to match it. So for example, if we just wanted to chuck, and they all use a channel as well, which, so if we chucked say 6 along here, that's 5, then we'd have, I believe, 4 per thing. And basically what it is you just choose a recipe that you want to keep in stock. In this case, let's say sticks or stick. And then we put that there. And then we always want to keep 64 in stock. And then we submit changes. And then you can choose to turn it on and off. Submit the changes. And then we go into here, for example, we take all of these sticks out. Sticks probably weren't the best example. They were not the best example. Hold up, let me quickly get rid of that. And my game's frozen. There we go. All right, we pull out all the sticks from here, and then it'll automatically start crafting more sticks. So as you can see, it's automatically, oh, if my game decides to work. Yep, so it'll automatically keep 64 sticks in stock at all times. So it'll keep crafting more until there's 64 in stock, and then it'll stop. So that's how the ME requester terminal works. How can this be used? Say you want to keep a stock of a certain item. So for example, you want to always have, well, what's a good example? So you have your metallurgic infuser, and you don't want to go through the effort of putting in a new refined obsidian every time. You just want to keep a stock of refined obsidian. You would set like an export bus, for example, onto the back of the metallurgic infuser, set that to yellow on input side and then infuse on input. And then basically you would set like a recipe for refined obsidian inside your ME requester. and then it would automatically fill up this metallurgical infuser with refined obsidian dust, sorry. And then say you used all of it, then it would automatically pull the stuff that's out in your system already out into the machine and automatically craft up more. So yeah, that's about everything for the Dumb Shit's Guide to Applied Energistics Part 3. If you have any further questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and if there's any that are big enough, then I'll make a follow-up video. Thank you very much, have a lovely rest of your day.